Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome back to Saving Storybook, where today we're going to start working on a vintage car ride. So for those of you who don't know, Saving Storybook is my I don't want to say like it's a rebuild or it's, I don't even know what the word is. I don't do them, where you build something in real life, but it's the closest thing I'm probably going to get to one. And StoryBook Gardens is a small young kid amusement park here in southern Ontario. A couple of flat rides and then lots of play areas, a splash pad, sand pit, that kind of thing. And this is my sort of imagination version of it. What if we just gave it like 30 million bucks, maybe more? I don't know. I've got no idea how much this stuff costs. But what happened if we just sort of gave it a bit of an increase in budget and marketing and tried to focus on a slightly older, more family vibe, because it really is for young kids as it is now. I think that kids, I took Xander earlier this summer and he's kind of aged out of most of it and he's coming up 8. So, I think this is what would happen if we actually get a couple of decent flat rides in here and maybe even a little family roller coaster or two and have kids coming here until their early teens or their pre-teens. So, anyway, having lots of fun with it, and this is the first sort of real step away from what it's like in real life. So in episode 1 we built the entrance plaza, which is pretty much a direct rip-off of the actual one, and in episode 2 we started with a couple of the flat rides and the man-made river that runs through the park. Again, we used different flat rides and we gave them a bit of a higher budget, but for the most part that's pretty much how it's laid out. This is the first major change in the fact that there is no vintage car ride in the park, but I'm not just pulling this sort of out my butt. There is reasoning behind it. What the park does have currently is a go-kart track for pedal go-karts. So it's a sort of little concrete figure of 8 that's beautifully planted and has lovely flowers and plants around it. It is a gardens after all. And then on the concrete there's always a pile of little pedal go-karts, and kids can just sort of come and grab them and pedal around. So what is the higher budget version of that? It's either a real go-kart track or something like this car ride, and personally the car ride was much more in keeping in the kind of style and theme that I'm going for at the place, and just personally a bit more my sort of just what I wanted to do rather than go-karts. The other thing that they have at Storybook is next to the go-karts actually is a little play village. We're really hanging on looking at this one piece of wood. Look at that. My goodness, there we go. I don't know why it took me so long to place. They have a play village, which is sort of little sheds that have been done out by to look like local businesses, very often sponsored by the businesses themselves. This is one of the ways that the real life Storybook Gardens generates revenue, is by having a lot of things sponsored. So the main stage is sponsored by Kellogg's, which used to be Kellogg's, as in used to be a factory that made the cornflakes, but now it's the factory isn't there anymore, but the building is now used as like an entertainment centre, indoor play, cinema, bowling alley, that kind of thing, but it's still called Kellogg's. And so they sponsor the stage here, and then there's a little Tim Hortons, which is a coffee shop that's sponsored by Tim Hortons. There's a little mechanics that's sponsored by a local mechanic, I think. And that's one of the ways they sort of generate revenue, or maybe not necessarily generate revenue, but get new stuff into the park. If you want to see a new store inside the model village, then that you find a company to pay for the store, basically. So what I wanted to do was kind of fuse those together, the go-karts and the model village, into a vintage car ride that rides you through the village. Now, we are losing a little bit of interaction there, because the village in real life is ones that kids can go into the units and potter about, but honestly they ain't great. It's kind of red hot in these things in the summer. They're basically sheds that have been decorated to look like stores. They get really hot, they get really sweaty. They've been there forever for the most part, and they've got sort of like a pile of crappy toys inside them that are like, one of them is a veterinarian's, for instance, and there's these like stuffed dogs in there that look like they're not like taxidermy, just just teddy bear dogs, but they've had these stuffed dogs in there that look older than me, and I don't know, it's just a little ropey, and I feel like, whilst I do believe that make-believe play is very important for kids, I think it's the sort of thing that maybe works a little bit better at home, or a little bit better in a more structured environment than just, hey kids, come and hang out in these sheds in the 35 Celsius degree heat all summer. So instead, to try and make it so that I'm not just building my own park here and just putting in what I like, what I want to do is try and reuse that idea of a model village and reuse the idea of a pedal go-kart track and come up with a vintage car ride that takes you through a little model village. Anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Here I'm just building the station, and I really wanted to just do classic vintage model car ride, and I was actually surprised at how little resources I could find online for this kind of stuff. I assumed that I would type in vintage car ride station and I would get, if not a pile of pictures, maybe even just like a website of some old guy that documents all this sort of stuff. I don't know, I just assumed that this sort of stuff would be so more available than it was, and I actually really struggled to find reference images for what I was looking for. I ended up, as always, going to the Bro Nation, where everyone knows exactly what they're talking about and can give you 20 examples of everything you're looking for. And this one in particular is based on, oh my word, I need to find it. I can't even remember what it was called now. I should have had this up. I'm such a pro. Mineral found it for me, and maybe it was Nobles. I don't know. It's great. I'll put a picture up of it in the edit. And I just loved it. I adored it. It's exactly what I thought it wanted to be. The one in real life is actually curved. This is a bit more of a simpler building that's just sort of flat. But I loved it. I loved the style of the topper and it just everything. So most of the build today is basically this building here. I will say that at the end of it, everything that's happening now all gets sort of truncated down a little bit. And originally it was a wooden structure there, but actually go back and change it out to look more concrete, to basically make it look a little bit more reinforced, because I felt like the wood looked a little bit too flimsy. And I am happy with how it looks, but I think it might be a little top heavy. I don't know. That's quite a big old thing there. But again, I put some references. I took some screenshots of this and shared it in Bro Nation, and for the most part, everyone was everyone actually was impressed, and nobody was like, it looks a little top heavy. And one thing I will say about Bro Nation is that they're incredible. But if you ask for feedback, they will offer very good feedback, which sometimes is negative, and that's good. It's important to have critical eyes looking at this sort of stuff, and I wouldn't share it there if I didn't think that's what I was going to get. But in this case, no, actually everybody was like, yeah, no, that looks great, go ahead. So I carried on with it. This little bit of roof in here made out of some trim. I actually sort of stole this from an image from Remnant, an awesome creator who shared a building. I think it was an ATM building actually, but the roof of the building had this sort of trim, and it looks a little bit nautical, and I kind of dig that. In real life, the go-kart station, the go-kart has no kind of station. That these things are just left out. I mean, maybe at the end of the night they're sort of carried off into a shed, but there's no like area that you get on these things. They're just dumped, and you just go and find one from the last kid that used it. So I haven't really got any references images here, and obviously the rise that we built at the top there is as much more of a sort of traditional fantasy theming to it, it's a classic sort of pirates and princesses type thing. The area towards the back of the park, that's at the moment mostly play area, but I would like to look at putting some rides in there. In this version is pirate themed, so there's it has little sort of area and little zones, so I felt that it was okay to kind of keep this vintage car area a little bit more sort of classic vintage basically, and so I've kind of gone for this slightly sort of nautical vibe to the building, based loosely off of that concept art, and then also just kind of how it sort of came together with these pieces. And I'm really quite happy with how it turned out. I'll be honest with you, I didn't get as much of this finished before I wanted to put an episode out, and as I've said previously, especially with Planet Coaster 2 at the moment, I'm not really looking to get like regular content, as in like, it's not Friday and a video's got to go out, but I do feel that putting the videos out is very much part of the creative process for me, and it's one of those things where sometimes I start to hit a bit of a wall with a build, and I find that showing where we're up to and showing what I've got so far, and then seeing some feedback from the community, it is a really great way for me to get some inspiration for me to carry on. So that's kind of what I felt like I got to here. Once the station was done, which I'm very happy with, I started on the beginning of the ride, I kind of had a rough idea of what I wanted to do. I knew that this sort of loop around here was going to be around a little fountain. I knew I just wanted lots of sort of like classic sort of brick and planting and flower beds. One thing I will say from the vintage car rides that I have both ridden myself and been able to find reference images of online, they're kind of crap as far as like what they look like and what they're doing. Occasionally you will get a very themed one, but for the most part, if it's a car like this and it is sort of like a classic sort of automobile car, the theming is very, very light, and the ride is you're just riding it for the sake of riding it, and what you have to look at is some plants and some different types of fencing, and that's basically it. And I really want to kind of emulate that here. Just sort of every sort of 20 foot change up the wall and change up the fence, because that's basically what they do. You are just sort of moving around. A lot of the interaction is going past other people in cars and sort of beeping your horn at them and waving at them, waving at the people in the queue lines. Very slight variations in height. These are the things that are the features of these. You know, in the same way that when you build a roller coaster, you're like, okay, we've got to have a nice big drop, we've got to have some bunny hills, we've got to have some cool inversions. It's seemingly when you build a vintage car ride, you're like, okay, we need a 5% incline. We need to go past other cars, we need some fencing, and we need some potted plants, and that's basically what these things have. I remember the one, oh man, where was it? I've ridden it a couple of times now. It was in the UK, and it's basically an open field with a figure of 8 in it, and you go on it and you move around in the figure of 8, and that's it. So I wanted something a little bit fancier than that, which we've got here, I hope. And then other ones I've done are really great. There was one that went around a little farmyard, like a real-life farmyard, and you went nearby animals and stuff. I think that was at Lightwater Valley. It sort of took you past some turkeys and some sheep, and that was cute. And, oh man, if we ever got... I mean, I can't imagine we would, but if we ever got like a petting zoo DLC for Planet Coaster, that would be amazing. Obviously, you know, Planet Zoo is its own game, and I can't imagine there being that kind of crossover. But yeah, that kind of thing is really fun. But here I've just gone for a very much more classic, just look at the masonry and look at some plants, and oh look, you're a little higher than you were before, and now you're a little lower than you were before. That's basically what I'm going for here. The other thing that sort of burnt me out a little with this, I don't say burnt out, I'm not burnt out, it's just like this is like 2 weeks worth of play in here, and I just wanted to kind of get it out and show it you. But this very slight curvature of the ride here, oh man, this fence that I'm about to start in a moment can suck wieners. It like, I think it looks great, but my word, this was a lot of work, because I don't like to work on a grid, but I like to work smart, not hard, you know. So here, great, look at that. Oh man, I made a fence in 2 seconds. That's amazing. And we'll add we'll add a ball every 4th one. Perfect. Then I had this incredibly slight decline that changes about 6 times all the way down it, so I can't even like copy or paste anything. Not only is it changing height, it curves around as well. I don't know what I was thinking when I decided to custom fence this thing. Honestly, this is ridiculous for me. This is not the sort of thing I do. You'll see a slight shortcut here. That was originally a little thinner. I'm like, nope, that's going to be thicker because I'm just copying the one below it. And then you'll see here, I'm going to have to go in and reline those up, and then go in and bring every single one down. If there's a better way of doing this, please don't tell me, because it's done now and I don't want to know. He'll cut there, but I go back and do a little bit every now and again. Again, I posted this up for a few people to see, and a couple of people were like, oh, is that like a path fence? Have you hidden path under the ride? And then I was like, oh no, can you do that? Could I have hidden path under there and turned the fence on? Would that have done the job? I mean, we might well use that somewhere else. I'm a big believer of a mix of both custom fencing and using in-game path fencing is the way to go, because the in-game path fencing is actually quite nice, and it generates nice, and it does curves really well. But obviously it's nice to make your own fencing and stuff as well. I do actually think a mix of the two, you'll see across my builds, a mix of the two types of fencing I use the most. So I do wonder if we can do that here. We've got, here is more like a farm type fence, I guess, with the beginnings of some planting here. And again, keeping the planting pretty light, mostly just sort of seeded flowers that they would sprinkle around each year. But the planting is going to be, excuse me, the planting is going to be a little heavier here in the park because, you know, it is a gardens, it is StoryBook Gardens. The one in real life does have some really incredible planting, and there is a team of gardeners that are constantly working the place and making it look beautiful. So definitely want to carry that over. Even with the higher budget, it would make even more sense. And then we're working on the fountain. Originally, I was just going to use a couple of the fantasy fountain pieces, but I thought, no, let's go a little step further with that, and we actually sort of fake it into the ground, just to kind of change it up, really. You know, like we've done a few different fountains now over the years, and I'm always looking for sort of different ways to do them. I thought this might be quite nice to have one that sort of sunk into the concrete as the ride was built, rather than something that was maybe added in afterwards. We're using the water special effects here to give some movement on the water itself. And then if I'm not a glutton for punishment doing custom fences, I'm about to do another one. But luckily, I love this archway piece. I wish it could go smaller. I'm this close, and I'm showing two fingers very close together here that you can't see. I'm this close to using the scaling mod because there are so many pieces now that I'm just like, oof, if only that went 20% smaller, like I'd be able to do so much with it. And this curve piece is one of them. They're really good, but they don't scale much smaller than what they are there, and they'd be so much more useful if they could go smaller. But yeah, a little fence around here. Kind of got to think that anywhere that a little kid could jump out of this ride and wander off from has to either be at the ride's level, such as this planting that we're doing in here, or fenced off, basically. So this ride is going to be lots of various fences. But I'm really happy with how this has turned out. Honestly, I sound a little bit negative, I think, but it's only because it was a bit of a slog, and I feel like I haven't really got that much to show for it. But I'm really happy with the station. I'm really happy with the bit of the ride that I've done. Although, like I say, it's maybe 10% of the ride. This might be one of those ones that ends up becoming our live stream project if I can find some regular times to live stream again. This is the sort of thing, much like the boat Once Upon a Stream boat ride that we did in Pinewood. This might be a great thing to just sort of come back to and work on in live streams. We'll see. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Until the next one, be good.